I grew up with your films, really, from Pee-wee onwards. Did you ever think when you started that you'd still be doing this today? Was that in your thinking?
I think each film you do feels like it's your last one. I mean, that's funny because it does, even when you get some success, the next project is always kind of feels like it's your last. It's like your first and your last. So once I got into knowing that that's the sort of dynamic, I sort of got used to that feeling.
You just got used to it. Yes.
Yeah, you get used to it because you know, and it should be that way because each film is a struggle to get made and do, and it should kind of feel like your first and last.
Does it still feel like a struggle to get your ideas off the ground? Because obviously when you started, you're coming out with some pretty out there ideas, and they're always quite dark. Is it easier now to get your stuff, you know, your Tim Burton?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. It's maybe a bit easier. But strangely enough, it was easier at the beginning because you're sort of flying under the radar, you know, and then once people become aware of you or you're lucky enough to have some success, and then you become kind of a thing, you know, and so that's why I don't really analyze it too much, and you just kind of try to go from project to project. But each one, it's surprising how difficult it is, and you know, once you get that moniker of being strange, you know, you can be the most normal guy in the world, but they still look at you that way.
Oh, because you're a normal, lovely
Yeah.
man, from what I
Yes,
can tell. But
that's
you just
very
because of
true.
these films, people obviously go, "Oh, it's that strange director."
Yeah,
Tim."
well, but even when you're a kid, they do that to you, you know, because you know, even if you just like monster movies, which just seems like a fairly normal thing for any
very
kid.
normal, yeah.
But even at that, they sort of treat you like you were weird. So it doesn't. People have a very low threshold for what they think weird is, you know.
Whether it's Dark Shadows or something like Batman, you've got sort of an aesthetic. Like, there's not many directors you can watch and go, "Oh, that's that director." Was that something you set out to do, or is that sort of evolved with what you've done?
No, I think it's just more because I'm not like, I was just doing things not out of like real skill. It's just doing things because I had the opportunity to do them and make them personal and things. So for me, I think it had more to do with that than it did with a certain style or anything. And I don't know if it helped that my background was in animation, so I had a certain kind of background that might have influenced some aspect of way I do things, but not necessarily something conscious.
I really dug the climax in here where you've got all those creatures coming alive in the house, and that, how different is that final product to what you've originally got going on in your head when you think, here's this scene going to happen?
Well, I mean, that was a strange, that whole end sequence sort of evolved because it was written in a certain way, and we started shooting it, but it wasn't, so that we were kind of making up. I mean, I kind of, you know, brought Johnny and Eva in every few days to just kind of chart the course of the whole thing. So it wasn't something that was like written and then many years later it sort of came, it was kind of a more of organic, you know, that and the sex scene. A lot of scenes in this were much more sort of organic and kind of done more slightly spontaneously.
Okay. One thing, you're into the technical side of film, whether it's a CG or making really neat animated features. I'm curious what you think of this sort of move to 48 frames per second that a lot of directors are starting to talk about now.
Yeah, I don't know. From what I've seen, I can't quite tell. I mean, you know, a while ago I was a bit against the high def because I felt it made things too, and then I got into it. And so you know, you kind of get used to it and adjust it. I'm not quite sure yet about that.
Because I was thinking about it, how it would, because your films are so filmic and it's that look. And I was just thinking last night, what would this be like in 48 frames per second? Would you want to make that move? You know?
I don't know. Not on some things, for sure. Some things, if you see, but I am saying, like, you know, like in a film like with this, where you know, texture is important, or if you're doing a stop motion or the kind of thing where you really want to read the textures and see things, I think it could be great. But sometimes there's things in film where you want to kind of blur the line a little bit, which might be a bit of a problem. So I think it depends on the project, really.